The music had long faded into an uneasy silence, yet she remained standing at the center of the aisle, her chest rising and falling in uneven breaths. Tears streamed freely down her face, blurring the faces of the guests who watched in stunned stillness. What was meant to be a moment of joy had turned into something fragile, something painfully real. Her heart pounded so loudly she could barely hear anything else, each beat echoing the storm inside her. She had imagined this day countless times, walking forward with certainty, smiling without hesitation. But now doubt clung to her like a shadow she couldn't shake. The past stood between them, heavy and undeniable. Broken trust, whispered arguments in the dark, nights when silence said more than words ever could. She had told herself she deserved something easier, something less complicated. Maybe she should walk away. Maybe this was her chance to escape before the pain repeated itself. But when she lifted her eyes to him, everything shifted. He wasn't trying to defend himself or make promises he couldn't keep. He simply stood there, vulnerable in a way she had never seen before, his hand extended toward her, not pulling, not demanding, just waiting for her to decide, waiting for her to choose. And in that quiet, she remembered the truth she had tried so hard to ignore. He had stayed. Through every storm, every tear, every moment she pushed him away, he had stayed. Not perfectly, not without mistakes, but honestly, completely. Love had never been about finding someone flawless. It had always been about finding someone who chose you. Even when things fell apart, her fingers trembled as she slowly lifted her hand, her vision still clouded with tears. The room seemed to hold its breath as she hesitated for one final second, standing at the edge of everything she feared and everything she hoped for. Then, with a fragile but undeniable strength, she placed her hand in his. The warmth of his touch steadied her, grounding her in a way nothing else could. Her voice broke as she spoke, barely louder than a whisper, yet carrying through the silence with quiet certainty. Yours or no one. And in that single moment, despite the pain, the fear, and the uncertainty, she made her choice not because it was easy, but because it was real, and because somewhere deep in her heart, she knew she would choose him all over again. The moment her words settled into the silence, yours or no one, a quiet ripple moved through the room, as if everyone present had just witnessed something far deeper than a simple vow. The air shifted, no longer tense, but heavy with emotion, raw and undeniable. She was still crying, her fingers tightly wrapped around his, as though letting go now would mean losing everything she had just fought to choose. He looked at her differently this time, not with uncertainty, not with fear, but with something steadier, something that had been waiting beneath the surface all along. His grip gently tightened around her hand, not to claim her, but to reassure her. His eyes, slightly red, held a vulnerability that mirrored her own. For once, neither of them tried to hide the truth. They were both imperfect, both wounded, yet still standing here together. A soft murmur passed through the guests, but it faded quickly as he took a small step closer to her. The distance between them disappeared, leaving only the fragile connection they had just rebuilt in front of everyone. He lifted his free hand slowly, hesitating for just a moment before brushing a tear from her cheek. The simple gesture carried more meaning than any grand speech ever could. "I don't deserve how strong you are," he said quietly, his voice unsteady but sincere. "But I promise, I will spend every day trying to become someone who does." Her lips trembled, not from sadness this time, but from the overwhelming weight of his words. This wasn't a perfect apology, nor a magical fix to everything that had gone wrong. It was real, honest, and somehow that made it more powerful than anything she had hoped for. The officiant, who had been silently watching, finally cleared his throat, offering a gentle smile as if to guide them back to the ceremony. But something had changed now. This wasn't just a wedding anymore, it was a quiet battle they had both chosen to fight together. As they continued, their voices still slightly shaky, each vow carried a new meaning. Every word felt earned, shaped by the struggles they had faced and the choice they were making in that very moment. When the time came to exchange rings, her hands were no longer trembling as much. Instead, they moved with a fragile confidence, sliding the ring onto his finger as though sealing not just a promise, but a second chance. And as he did the same, their eyes never left each other, because now, more than ever, they understood what it truly meant to stay. The final words of the ceremony lingered in the air like a soft echo, but neither of them moved right away. It was as if time itself had slowed, giving them one last moment to fully understand what they had just chosen. Not perfection, not certainty, but each other. The guests waited quietly, watching the couple not with curiosity anymore, but with a quiet respect for the storm they had just witnessed and survived. When the officiant finally smiled and said, "You may kiss," a gentle warmth spread through the room. But instead of rushing, he paused, his forehead lightly touching hers. Their breaths mingled, unsteady but calm, as if they were grounding themselves in this new beginning. She let out a soft, trembling laugh through her tears, her hands resting against his chest, feeling the steady rhythm of his heart beneath her palms. "You're still crying," he whispered, a faint smile breaking through. "So are you," she replied, her voice softer now, almost peaceful. And then slowly, he leaned in and kissed her, not as a grand gesture for the crowd, but as a quiet promise meant only for her. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't rehearsed, but it was real. And somehow, that made it everything. The room erupted into applause, but the noise felt distant compared to the silence they had shared moments before. As they pulled apart, their foreheads still close, she realized something had shifted inside her. The fear hadn't completely disappeared, and maybe it never would, but it no longer controlled her, because now she knew something stronger than fear. They turned together, still holding hands, facing the people who had come to witness their union. But this time, she didn't feel like she was performing or pretending. She felt present, honest, alive. Every step they took down the aisle felt lighter than the one before, as if the weight she had carried for so long was finally beginning to lift. Outside, the sunlight greeted them warmly, wrapping around them like a quiet blessing. The world hadn't changed, but they had. Life ahead would still have arguments, misunderstandings, and moments of doubt, but it would also have forgiveness, growth, and the kind of love that doesn't give up easily. As he gently squeezed her hand, she looked at him again, not with hesitation, but with quiet certainty. She had meant every word, yours or no one.